Can you promote me so I can get the agenda up?
I'm gonna do that twice. It joins panelists twice. Okay, well, let's. All right, with that, unless there are objections, we will call F&A committee to order. City Clerk, Dina, will you make note of attendance? And not in attendance is Joe Johnson. He is asked to be excused tonight. If there are no objections, we will consider him as excused.
Of course.
He is excused for tonight. All right, let's move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or alterations to the agenda as proposed for tonight? No, although I don't think we're going to get to all of them. And I'm going to take a different tact on number 9. We'll see how that goes. All right. Is there any objections to approval? We'll take the agenda as presented as approved. All right, the agenda is approved. With that, we'll move on to public comments. Are there any individuals in the audience or online wishing to make public comment before the committee on matters not currently on the agenda? I see no one in here wishing to make comment. And I don't see any hands raised. It does bring up a concern that we're going to have to get into. Okay. All right. With that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Will be approval of minutes dated April 2nd, 2024. Chair has no concerns or revisions.
No concerns.
Unless there are objections, we'll consider the minutes as presented as approved. All right, we'll move on to consideration of claims report dated April 22nd, 2024. I don't have any questions or comments. I would like a conversation with city administrator and finance director post this meeting.
Okay.
After this meeting.
Okay.
And Mayor, you're welcome to. I had a question. All right. And there, considering no questions or anything with regards to warrants, we'll go ahead and accept those as presented. Let's move on to appointing persons to committees to prepare arguments advocating the approval and rejection of Prop 1.
All right, so thank you very much, Chair. Earlier this year, Council adopted resolution number 1677, in essence, asking the voters or submitting to the voters a proposition for a 0.1% to impose a 0.1% public safety sales tax. Result of that vote and that adoption at that time, we have placed on the ballot for August the 6th that public safety sales tax. As a consequence of that, there's a couple dates that we need to meet within May. One of those is establishing the pro and con committees for the proposition to include in the voters pamphlet prior to that August 6th election date. Through this effort, we're hoping to, and today we've released a new release to the public asking for people to apply for the pro and con committees. That application is open through Sunday, 5 p.m. So that we can get the list of names into an exhibit to post as a part of this agenda bill. Let me just get to the agenda bill here for a second. So RCW 29A.32.280 requires the legislative authority of the local government to formally appoint members to committees to prepare arguments advocating approval and rejection of any proposed ballot measure. The legislative authority must appoint committee members no later than the deadline calling for the inclusion of the ballot measure in the voters pamphlet, which is May the 3rd. And because April the 22nd is our last council meeting before that date, we wanted to try to get this out as soon as we possibly can. If the city is unable to locate people to serve on either or both committees, the city will notify King County Elections no later than 4:30 on the day of the appointment deadline and detail the efforts made to establish the committees. So ideally, we'll get some responses back to those applications, and then as soon as we get some people, we'll prepare a second exhibit to attach to this agenda bill, and then ideally for council would approve that list on the 22nd. With that said, a lot of this effort here is to be very transparent with the public. We want people to serve on both the pro and con committees, basically. It's a conversation that the community needs to have about whether to proceed with the public safety sales tax. And so we would love people to sign up if they have time to work on this effort. With that said, I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
I had actually reached out to the clerk to ask just a couple questions in terms of where the names were and things like that. And I understand now that the rest of this has gone out, that that's where we'll be going from there. I did just for my own edification. So what happens if, you know, people apply, they're appointed and they just don't do what they're supposed to? Because I didn't see anything in the brochure materials about how we, like, for example, if the pro committee just doesn't submit anything. I didn't see what the next, would King County get involved at that point? Since obviously we can't be a part of that. And we're limited to 3 members. I understand that they can get assistance from other folks, but.
Yeah, I don't quite have an answer to that question. I can certainly ask King County Elections to see if they have a response to that. I do know that if we can't appoint anyone for the pro and con committees, King County has the opportunity to actually take a look at that. So, and that's part of the information that's been shared with that voters pamphlet, chapter 8, basically, from the jurisdiction manual.
But once we have individuals who said, pick me, staff will be facilitating both the pro and con as for any information they want, coordinating meetings, correct? Or will they be
I think it's a very hands-off approach.
Okay.
In terms of reading what the chapter, it is really the committee that is going to be responsible, and especially the chair of that committee, whether it's pro or con, in terms of submitting the information to King County Elections. So we want to make sure that it's hands-off, that the jurisdiction isn't influencing kind of the arguments that they're making overall. And so I think in essence, it will be the chair of both of those committees that will be responsible for making sure that they can file that paperwork in a timely manner with King County Elections. In addition to that, they also have to respond with a rebuttal statement as well, which they don't have a lot of time to actually respond with a rebuttal. It's actually 2 days in which they have time to develop the rebuttal and submit it back to King County as well. So that would normally be worked through the chair itself. And we would hope that anyone that signs up is there for the long haul and will be prepared to take an active role in writing what they need to in order to submitting a written statement to King County Elections.
Okay. Just as a side, there is a gentleman in the community has a name rhymes with mine, who I approached and said, would you be interested in serving on one of these? And he said, yes. So you might reach out to him. I hear he's on Facebook, or whatever, reach out to him and see if he would still like to participate and how he would like to participate. But I do think we as a council ought to take opportunity for those individuals we know who may have may have an interest in this area to see if they would be interested in serving and get in contact with you, or city clerk, or whoever. Because it's a short flow. All right, any further discussion? Okay. Then you just sent the press release out. When are you expecting names back?
So the goal is for the application deadline is Sunday this week, basically at 5 p.m.
And you will have a pro and con list of names by Monday at 7?
We're hoping to turn it around quickly. We know we're on a short time frame here.
Okay. All right, because the agenda bill as presented obviously has a motion to approve appointment of persons with nothing there. Okay,
Basically have the shell. Now we need to fill it.
all right. But that gives I can at least envision one individual who may want to be on the committees where the council may have an issue. And we've got no time to, if, assuming you have, I'm not sure how many people are on each committee. Is there a number, is there a limitation or suggested number?
I think it's probably suggested 3.
This is 3, but they
Okay.
can gather additional input from the community.
Yeah, you may have the 3 proposed plus any alternates just in case. I'm just trying to figure, there's no time for us for council to make consideration other than that night, Monday night. All right. All right, we'll move forward with that. I don't think you get to sit down because now you want to talk biennial budget and
Yeah, so in essence, this is the kickoff with your next agenda bill. What we're presenting to you is the biennial budget calendar, and I'm going to share my screen. And so in essence, this is the game plan moving forward in terms of finishing and adopting a 25 through 26 biennial budget. Let me clear that off the screen right there. I know it's a bit hard to see, so let me go ahead and zoom in for the most part. So in essence, this is your kind of 30,000 foot level calendar. It's primarily for council's direction and interest for the most part. In addition to that, we'll be developing an internal calendar that will be provided to the department directors about how they're going to go about in terms of developing the budget and when those deadlines are overall. We've got certain sections and it's been color coded for your benefit. Obviously, you can't see the legend right now, so I'm just going to go down to the legend briefly here for the most part. What you've got in front of you is we hope to go through and discuss. You have this on the agenda for a discussion item today is the financial policies. We're going to be providing you with a financial forecast, which you've been familiar with over time. In addition to that, we're going to be having conversations around the public safety sales tax proposition. We know that the election date set for that is August the 6th. Furthermore, we're also, and you guys have also been in discussion regarding a utility rate study, which will produce a utility rate schedule moving forward. And so we've got dates associated with that activity in here as well. We know that we're having conversation around the 2025 through 2030 capital improvement plan, which is critical to the biennial budget as well, and how we're going to set ourselves up for the next 6 years in terms of maintaining our current assets, as well as any sort of strategic investments we may want to make. And then lastly, as a part of this calendar, you'll see color coded in green here, dates associated with the adoption of the 25-26 biennial budget, which will tie all the pieces together that we will be exploring up to that date. So with that said, there's a lot of council meetings in here. There's also a lot of committee meetings as well, especially in regards to the F&A committee as well as the Parks and Public Works committee. I'm happy to kind of try to walk through what the plan is overall, but generally the schedule is to focus kind of starting off with the financial policies. We'll be moving into a lot of the non-utilities portion of the CIP. The goal is to really get that non-utilities portion approved or adopted by council by June the 24th. Subsequent to that, we'll be having conversations around the utility rate study, which will influence the utilities portion of the CIP. Those will be coming to you concurrently with the ideal adoption date in this calendar of roughly August the 12th. As we're kind of going through that with council, in the background, staff is going to be preparing the 25-26 biennial budget. And our goal, we'll keep our fingers crossed for this, is to get the biennial budget adopted by October the 3rd. with that said, hopefully, we really want to make that date as much as possible, but we do understand that there is some contingency time if we can't quite make that, which would include the rest of October, November, and maybe some time within December. But in essence, this is our goal kind of moving forward. If you're familiar with the budget process from the last time, we will often, and hopefully not as much as we did the last time, what we will probably be bringing back the calendar back to you if we have any sort of revised dates or a different way of approaching this in time. So you will see this reflected pretty consistently throughout the year. And we'll notify you if there's any changes to the calendar with a new amended agenda bill. And we would like to acknowledge that this is quite a bit of work. And so we want to thank you guys ahead of schedule for your time and effort that you're going to be pouring into the biennial budget and everything that comes with that as well. So thank you for making the sacrifice, right, for the city and for us as well as staff here, because we do need your decision-making and your consideration and the value that you provide to making this, you know, certainly one of the best cities in this state.
Okay, couple of things. Okay, I'll leave it alone. I'm not sure the pro and con committee stuff needs to be in here as overall budget. It's an action going on, but I'm not sure. And it affects the budget, but I'm not sure it's truly within the limited scope here. But for the non-utilities CIP, I agree that Parks and Public Works is prime, but I would also like FNA to have a review. Okay. If nothing else, you've said non-utilities, there is a chance that some of those are not within the scope of Parks and Public Works. That would be the realm of FNA. So Parks and Public prime, FNA secondary to that. And yeah, okay. The June 8th council special tour, that's not a council meeting night, I take it.
No, it's not.
Is it a Thursday?
That would be a Saturday.
That would be a Saturday, all right.
The public house before that would be the Thursday.
Okay, and council's following on June 10th, adoption of friends. Okay. Okay, I have, other than that, like I said, the non-utility stuff, I would appreciate if we take a look also on that. I have, this will be a living document as we go through and adjust. I don't want to go too deep
Good
into it.
phrase.
And I assume that as we're going through, to the extent that anything is changing significantly in the financial forecast, that we will have the opportunity to review that again as we're going through some of the other.
Yeah. Checkpoints.
We'll be busy.
Yep, it's gonna be busy, Huntington. Okay, and you've got special budget workshops at the tail end, just in case. I'm sure we'll utilize some of them. All right. Any further discussion in regards to that? I take it, we'll take this to council and review with them and get everybody committed online. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
You bet. Let's move back up to the top. I think, so we have a discussion on Prop 1 explanatory statement. Didn't we just have that?
No, so, well, we just discussed the pro and con committees. This is the second phase of what we have to produce for the voters pamphlet, which is the explanatory statement.
Mhm.
So as a consequence, just going back to the chapter 8 that I included as part of the pro and con committee, basically, the jurisdiction must coordinate with their legal counsel to prepare an explanatory statement of the proposition. Explanatory statement states the effect of a ballot measure if passed into law and only covers the anticipated effect of the measure should it be passed into law. Statement must not be an argument in favor or in opposition to the measure. The statement can be prepared by the jurisdiction or by the jurisdiction's attorney. If the statement is prepared by the jurisdiction, it must be signed off by the jurisdiction's attorney. We have taken that liberty to draft the explanatory statement. We have had some feedback from our attorney, but we'll be seeking that final response from them regarding it. And we wanted to share that with you tonight as well. So I'm going to share my screen again. Council, we're going to pull up the explanatory statement. And I will read that. So our explanatory statement for proposition number 1, public safety sales tax. City of Snoqualmie provides police services, fire protection, and medical services to its residents and businesses. The Snoqualmie City Council approved a public safety sales tax ballot measure to help offset historic inflationary pressures on city police and fire department expenses. If approved by the voters, the city would impose a 0.1% sales and use tax on retail sales that would be paid by all retail sales consumers, including non-resident visitors, ensuring that non-residents share some of the costs of providing public safety services. The funds this measure generates would be used solely for public safety to support current service levels, including, but not limited to, personnel and the related costs of hiring, training, equipping, and employing public safety professionals. The additional sales and use tax would generate approximately $226,000 in 2025 for the city's public safety services. If the measure is approved, the city of Snoqualmie's total sales tax rate would be 9.2%, which is currently lower than the majority of cities in King County. For every $1,000 in non-exempted retail sales within the city, the tax would generate $1. The total words of this is 200 because we have a limit of 250 words. And so this is our explanatory statement that we're prepared to offer. Like I said, we'll need eventually the sign off of our city attorney to make sure that we're compliant with law for the most part, but we think this pretty much conveys the public safety sales tax.
How do we know we're less than the majority of King County cities?
Because we went through the list, so we can go to the DOR website. They have a list of all the sales tax rates per city. Jana, our budget manager over there, counted.
Cool.
And I think we noticed that there were 9 cities that we were greater.
That was before we had
Okay.
the increase, but yes, we're still, well, I think for 8.9, there were 9 cities who had lower sales tax than us and 31 who had. So we're,
And the majority of cities within King County are within the RTA district. And so a lot of those cities are already greater than 10% in terms of their sales tax rate. And so we would maintain our sales tax advantage.
Thank you. Good answer. Any other questions? And you're, so you're looking, I assume you're looking for F&A feedback because you got it. Are you looking for council feedback in regards to this statement or?
Certainly, we're happy to take your feedback, but we also wanted to make sure that this was a transparent process and that you were fully aware of what the administration is prepared to submit to King County. And if you did have any feedback, then we would like to take that on board to revise this statement if it's necessary.
Would the intent to be to review this in council next Monday? I think that would be presumptive.
So, we're here to share. We want to make sure that we're avoiding surprises with council. We're happy to bring it to the attention of your fellow council members on Monday if that's desired. And but if you're satisfied with this today, then we can certainly move on and submit this to King County elections.
When's the due date to this to King County?
The date for this is May the 7th.
Oh, okay. So we've got a little.
We do.
No, I guess I would appreciate if you were to send it to council in email, ask for any response back to you of any feedback. Again, I think it's a little presumptive to have it in the full light of council before all this gets on. Although anybody can watch this video too. I'm sure we have a much smaller market share in the viewership than council. Zero. All right, cool. Thank you. Good write-up.
You don't need to see it at council. You just want us to email it to council.
Email to council.
Okay.
All right. Review and update of financial policies.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. This is just an introduction. As we noted, as a part of the biennial budget calendar, we'll be exploring the financial policies and potentially updating those with an anticipated adoption date of a amended financial management policy of June the 10th. So right now, this is just to get people a little bit familiar with the financial policies. For the most part, it's a very short presentation. So with that said, just to give some background on the financial management policies, a complete revision of the city's financial management policy took place over multiple months back in 2022. It was developed concurrently with the 23-24 biennial budget. And really at that time, it had been a decade since the last update. A lot of the financial management policy the council adopted in 2022 was borrowed heavily from the Issaquah's financial management policy. Took a lot of that on board and kind of modified that to reflect our needs here at the city. The city has had 2 years to put the financial management policy into practice. And as a consequence, we noticed some things that we would love to maybe correct, right, or clarify as a part of that financial management policy, and see those updates kind of come forward from the budget team over there. And it's very normal for cities to review and update the financial management policy every 2 years. So this is kind of like the checkup. Much like we go through and update the CIP every 2 years, we want to make sure that we're returning to you every 2 years. And if we need to adjust the financial management policy to make us stronger overall, we want to make sure that we dedicate some time towards that effort. And we want to do this prior to the development of the next biennial budget. The city's financial management policy provides guidance for financial decision-making, but it doesn't provide procedures. So procedures cover the detailed steps necessary to carry out policy. This policy is at like the 30, 50,000 foot level. Procedures themselves that we would develop internally be at the ground level for the most part, that helps give kind of your day-to-day staff the direction that they need in order to do their jobs appropriately. So with that said, the financial policies, what is the value in adopting financial policies? Well, it's really to institutionalize good financial management practices. It helps elected officials, management, and staff make good financially sound decisions overall. In addition to that, it provides stability and continuity over the years as staff and elected officials turn over. So you keep those in place, those stick around, but not necessarily the people. Helps to clarify kind of strategic intent for financial management. What is our goal overall? Is it financial sustainability? It's usually a high level goal, right, for the most part. And we've been interested in that goal and how can we pursue that goal? Policies help us to kind of deliver that goal to council. Helps us define the boundaries. So it provides control over courses of action taken by management, but it can also provide flexibility for management to exercise discretion in carrying out policy as well. So it can have that kind of effect to make sure that we're actually following the direction that you guys set, while making sure that we have the tools available within the toolbox provided by the policies in order to carry out that direction that you guys are setting. Helps us to kind of develop a good bond rating overall. So one of the things that a bond rating agency would look at is our financial management policies. And if they adhere to kind of general best practices overall, then you can expect our bond rating to go up. So this is actually really, really important for that itself. Helps to promote long-term and strategic thinking. It can help us to manage risks to our financial condition, making sure that we're watching out for certain aspects that can harm us. And we want to make sure that we've got something in place that can help direct us in terms of how to solve those risks over time. And then it also helps us to comply with established public management best practices as well. So making sure that we're adhering to the latest guidance that's out there right now and that we're part of that. So with that said, what is the purpose of the review and the update? Well, the goal for us is to really clean up and or clarify the financial management policy to ensure that it's working for us and or reflecting our current circumstances. So like I said, we have 2 years of history now of operating under these financial management policies and want to make sure that it's not hamstringing anything, but it's helping us really kind of guiding that decision-making in the right directions that council wants us to set overall. Also making sure that reflects our current circumstances. So the city has certainly changed over the past couple of years. We want to make sure that where we are right now is kind of reflected in this document moving forward. Talked about a living document. Financial management policies are a bit of a living document as well. And so we need to make sure that we can really adhere to it as much as possible. It shouldn't change very frequently, but there may be some places where we can update that and make us an even stronger organization. Also, it's going to provide a good reminder for everyone of what the financial management policy states. So it's just a good kind of hygiene, used that word previously, right? To actually go through and what does it say to make sure that we're all aware of what the boundaries are, I think overall, and how we approach financial management. And then generally, if we need a longer cleanup effort, if necessary, should probably take place in the off budget year. So will help us to kind of look into it, see if there's actually larger changes that we need to make, and then we can kind of start scheduling some of that if it becomes a work plan item for the most part that we need to eventually address in the off budget year. So this really is intended for kind of a light cleanup or a clarifying kind of moment before adoption on June the 10th, and that's what we intend to engage upon. With that said, the focus of our efforts is really on multiple sections and pretty much the majority of the document itself. And it's really because these sections are important to the budget process. So reserves and fund balance. There are some sections within the reserve and fund balances section that are a bit unclear to the budget team that they'd like clarification for the most part. And so we want to bring maybe some recommendations to the table and help kind of clarify that. When you look at section 4 right there, expenditures and procurement, there's an issue with that primarily because the contract matrix that is in the financial management policies doesn't reflect what's in the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. And so you've got differences between both. Fortunately, if you're adopting a resolution, you're not really modifying the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. And so we may have to bring back an ordinance. And the fact is it confuses staff to have one contract matrix within the municipal code, but then you've got one that was adopted by resolution here, and they don't quite match in terms of their dollar thresholds. So those are some of the things that we want to clean up over time and actually make sure that we're consistent across the entire organization.
Or you may, anytime you dual source the authority, it's going to go in conflict. So you may eliminate one and use the other one as authority by reference.
Yeah. Mhm. So anyway, those are kind of the activities that we want to engage in for the most part when it comes to reviewing the financial management policies and helping to kind of clarify that. Overall, it's certainly going to benefit us internally in terms of the direction that they need in order to really produce this biennial budget for the city. So with that said, I do have copies of the financial management policy and be happy to kind of give them to council after today's meeting.
Okay, but I do want to hit on two things. Yeah, the accounting rules will say what we do, and these policies say how we do it. But you as the director have some discretion on how we do things. And so with a change in directorship, this is also your opportunity to review this to say, is this really how I want to do it? To put your flavor on how things get done here in the city. You've got history here, you've got history in North Bend, we ought to benefit from that. So you have opportunity here too. I would also like, and since we did this, there have been moments of financial concern in the past year and a half. But since the last time we did this, might take a look at those and how would we, are there any lessons learned from those that we would incorporate back into these financial policies? Okay. But let's have that discussion for how you're going to lead us through. Any comment?
No, none of this.
Thank you, Chair.
You bet. ERP project status update. You're still not done.
Yeah. Going back to another slide deck, let's. All right, so thank you again, Chair. I'm happy to report that I feel there's pretty significant momentum happening with the ERP project. There haven't been any changes internally in terms of resources, but one of the great aspects of this past month is we do have a new Tyler implementation consultant who can work on site, who has been assigned to the city. And so over the past month, we've actually had 2 sessions on site here with that implementation consultant who has worked both with the payroll team, which is represented by your budget staff over here, as well as HR2, and they've been working collaboratively within the same room. So we've been lucky to have him here on site for 5 to 6 days in total overall to really kind of grind out a lot of the configuration that we need for the payroll system. And I can't thank the budget team enough for the amount of time and effort that they've spent on getting us configured within the payroll system. We'll talk more about what their expectations are, because I hear a lot of good news coming from the budget team over there regarding this itself. But I just want to share some positive news when it comes to the ERP project is I feel that there is a lot of momentum around payroll and that we're progressing pretty well on that now at this stage. With that said, I always like to kind of bring up again, where are we going? It's a new year for new processes overall. We have to make sure that we incorporate those new processes into the new system. And the goal, once again, stated this previously, but it's to complete all 4 phases by the end of the year. And so often, where are we currently? Well, financials, phase 1 overall, we haven't really made any sort of changes to this overall. It hasn't been a focus for the past month yet. I've had certainly a training over the past month, but I haven't been able to put that into practice quite yet. That would influence accounts payable, general billing, and the analytics and reporting. This is kind of the common kind of graphic that I've provided previously. It provides you with the stages or milestones from red to green. And you can see that a lot of the financial modules for phase 1 are within the kind of the green area itself, with some of the other modules, at least 4 of them, that are still currently in the assess and define stage. But right now, a lot of the time and effort regarding the ERP project has been around EAM, which is Parks and Public Works focused, but then also payroll. And so moving on to the next slide here. In terms of human capital management, I talked about the budget team is leading the implementation in this phase. Like I said, the new implementation consultant has been on site twice for a total of 5 to 6 full days sessions since the reorganization last month. Certainly been some tasks assigned that both Jen and Janet have been feverishly trying to get to as quickly as they possibly can, including dealing with the FLSA, blended overtime rates, volunteer fire pay, and then generally verifying the employee job salary application, the employee deductions application, as well as the employee accrual application. One of the positive notes to make, and I've heard this from them a little bit, is they believe that they can get to running parallels in May, which would be significant. And that parallel is basically comparing what we're producing out of our Springbrook system versus what we would produce out of Munis. And so once we reach that stage, we have some data that we can actually work with. If Munis isn't producing like Springbrook does, then we know that we potentially have some corrections to make into Munis, right, for the most part. And we want to kind of get to that stage where it's fully configured, that we can run those processes, figure out what's missing, and then actually go out and correct it within the new system. Yes.
How long would you typically run the 2 programs in parallel to make sure that the numbers are accurate and matching?
How long we should?
Mhm.
So generally, I'd like to do it as much as we possibly can. I think it's probably pretty healthy to have maybe 3 payroll cycles. And that is what we had planned for when we had initially in April 1st go live date overall, is to have 3 parallel runs. If we're able to get to May, and we're going to actually report this in the next slide coming up here, but the new scheduled go live date is October the 1st.
3 successful parallel
3
runs.
successful parallels, right? Yes, correct. Where we're getting the same numbers out of Springbrook as we would be out of this new system use. With that said, the new scheduled go live date is October the 1st. That was in consultation with our implementation consultant. It's also on the quarterly, so it helps in terms of reporting to make sure that it's on the proper quarter. We didn't think we'd be able to exactly reach that July the 1st date. We weren't very comfortable with that, which is why it's been moved to October the 1st. As a part of this, they have to develop some accumulators that we would then import into Munis from our legacy system, because it is important for us to produce W-2 information out of Munis by the end of the year. So On the back end, we're making sure that that payroll earnings history and all that's associated with that is accumulated appropriately and imported into Munis so that we can incorporate that into the W-2s by the end of the year. Like I said, the hope is to conduct our first parallel run in May. And what we've learned over time, and this is part of that lessons learned conversation, is we really needed a more collaborative approach between finance and HR, having them in the same room so that we can hammer out those kind of sticky points over time for the most part. And they've been working extremely well together. Previously, it was a bit disjointed where HR was focused one day, but then finance and payroll was focused the next day. And so we've really made an effort to connect the two sides together and work jointly in the same room at the same time. So with that said, utility billing phase 3, we still have not been assigned an implementation consultant, and Tyler is still looking for one for us. And then lastly, in terms of enterprise asset management, phase 4 here, Brendan and his team have been off and running since the start of this. They compiled the majority of activity codes for all divisions and uploaded some into the testing environment, working to create inspections and checklists for certain activity codes. Some work has been completed on connecting GIS to Munis, which is really one of the massive challenges. One of the things that Brendan has been very intensely looking at is how do we get Munis to really respond to that GIS data that we need to import into it and how that can connect into the new system itself. Another challenge, however, for us that we're coming across here recently is the assignment of assets to departments and divisions within Parks and Public Works. Finance has been brought into that conversation. We'll likely need to update the department division segment of the account string. So consequently, our departments and divisions don't currently reflect the organizational structure at this point. And so we're going to need to make sure that we actually do that. And so the projected go live date is still September the 30th. When I'm talking about that last issue, that challenge of making sure that we're updating the department and division codes properly, this is the pullout from Munis right now. And as you can see, we've got a Parks and Streets division, but street maintenance is separate from Parks division. And so it makes their job a lot more challenging if we don't have those account codes properly set up. So we'll be going through an effort within the finance department to make sure that we can consolidate where we need to, separate where we need to, and make sure that those account codes really reflect the organization and where we're structured right now. So with that said, happy to answer any questions you may have.
In minute, I don't know if I want to make the comment. Can you go back to the beginning? So the section in which you said basically having Munis do what Springbrook did, where was that in regards to?
Payroll.
Huh?
Payroll.
All right, and what's the schedule for payroll?
Projected parallels starting in May,
Uh,
go live in October 1st.
So the goal is, their hope, right? And so we talked about this in the previous committee meeting where hope is not a method, right? For the most part, but they're feeling confident enough to put that information out there that indeed they believe, right? They have, and I could see the smiles on their faces over there that they're getting a little bit excited and giddy that they might actually reach that stage to where we can run parallels. So I've been seeing the excitement out of them. That's what I'm trying to convey to you is they're actually excited, and that may be represented in that date. They've been working extremely hard on the back end to make sure to try to get as much of this configuration completed as much as possible. And so I just want to really thank them for their effort. If we can get to parallels in May, that would be fantastic. It's the budget team. So if you look at this calendar right here, they're going to be slammed trying to kind of help us through that ERP project as well, get through the budget calendar as much as possible, along with other kind of work plan items that we have in addition to that. So we do believe that October the 1st is a respectable, realistic date for us at this stage, given all that we've got between now and that in terms of the budget, other items as well. In addition to that, the implementation consultant who can be here on site, he's got other clients that he's working with pretty continuously as well. And so in terms of the ability to pull him into the city, it can be a bit of a stretch between periods. So we were lucky to have him on site these past 5 to 6 days. Our next real on-site session with him wouldn't be until really late June. And so consequently, there will be periods of delay where we aren't making that much progress just because got to schedule this out appropriately, and there's blackout dates that we have to consider as well as we're planning this out. That means things like when is the payroll going out, because we have to focus our attention then there and making sure that we're reviewing payroll appropriately. Then we can turn our attention back around to the ERP system. There's also the AP calendar as well that we are also addressing on the back end as well. Comes through this. So there's a lot of blackout dates between our schedule as well as their schedule, and we're trying to find that sweet spot where we're both available at the same time. And that's a lot of the reason why we're working toward an October 1st date, in addition to the need to really start on a sound quarter. So this would be the start of really the 4th quarter, which would be the October 1st date.
Okay, thank you. I'll tell you my non-relevant emotional reaction to that statement later. It's not important at the moment. Just from an IT guy standpoint. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, let's get back into. Gotta be that one. I found a client ERP or review of council rules and procedures. Was there intent on a structured conversation? This was just a title.
So yes, so we'd like to, we're gonna, I've gone through and done reformatting of these, and I'm gonna start going through and kind of highlighting some areas, but I thought maybe we could, there's 11 rules total, so maybe we could do like rule 1 through 3 at one FNA, and we could start kind of taking it chunks at a time to get through them all.
I'm glitching on words. Not intent. When you say there are 11 sections.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
there's more than 11 rules in that thing, but there's 11 sections.
Yeah, I guess they're broken out by called rules, but yes, sections. And some of them are small, but so we could get through them quickly.
Okay, and all right,
Yeah, that's how we did it last time,
Uh-huh.
right? I said, I think that's how we did it last
yeah,
time.
we just start from the top, work the way down.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I'm gonna make sure we're working on the same page. So can you send me the copy you have, maybe before markups, but what you started with? I would like to send it out to council and say, hey, we're gonna start going through 1 through 3 that should be coming through. This is your opportunity to provide the FNA committee feedback prior to our discussion next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd love to have them involved in the conversation, if nothing else, as a secondary audience.
Before markups or, I mean, she already has some markups.
I have some, but I can send the original.
Yeah, I don't want to presume the markups until we have the conversation. So send the original without markups and just throw it to council and say, hey, what do you think? And then let's have the discussion on the markups. We can throw the markups later and get council feedback, but I'd rather we have the conversation before we throw those out in case there's reaction.
And so we'll review sections 1 through 3 at the next FNA.
Yes.
Should I rename them then? Not rules, but sections.
Yeah, they're more than it's not a, yeah.
That would be 5, 6, I believe. the next
Maybe we have that discussion next one, but yeah, I think it's more sections and rules.
Great.
They cover, some of them cover broad territory.
Just leave it.
Okay, cool. And I want to basically, I want to have a working on number, well, before I go to number 9, I'm going to drop something in the agenda here. That being, what are we doing public comment next council meeting? We suspended last time. The intent we suspend again, or I thought we were going to have a conversation here about public comment in council.
So Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I prepared the draft agenda similar to what we did last time.
Mhm.
And I think you could each time do a motion. In our current rules, there is a part about that you can change these by motion.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, like, I can't remember what it's called. Rules of public participation, I think is what it was called. And we could establish some, which would go into effect before we do this whole modification. I don't, as opposed to doing it before each. public
Yeah, I
comment
eventually want to get
period.
there that we have a standard that we're going by and we don't have to do it each one.
Mhm. So perhaps that would be a solution temporarily, is to bring a motion to have rules of public participation, and those would just be in effect until we update our council rules. Not really sure. There's a variety of ways we could do this.
No, but let's, whichever section has the public comment section in it.
In
On
the,
the agenda?
in the
No,
agenda
in the council rules and procedures.
There's not really an area I didn't find. I mean, it talks about public comment after each agenda bill, right?
Mhm.
But not the main one.
Okay, so we probably ought to have something there. So let's, as well as 1 and 3, let's talk public comment.
Okay.
Council public comment in our next meeting and how to incorporate something in the rules and procedures here. With the intent, I'd like to quickly do something to change. Not just every meeting or make a motion
Every
to
time.
suspend until further notice. That's a bit uncomfortable for me. But we'll go ahead and suspend online public comment in the next council meeting. Please note that statement in there, as we did last time, of we may not take online public comment, and we're more than happy for them to submit their comments via email or through yourself. Okay. And proceed on there. But eventually I want to get us to a standard process under which we do online some way. Either email or not at all, or somewhere in between.
So is that part of maybe committee of the whole discussion next time? Or what? During the council meeting?
I'm trying to decide if we ought to come with something, a proposed course, or just, if we do it the next time, it's kind of open to discussion. No, let's go ahead. Let's do, in the committee of the whole, let's have a discussion on online public comment. And at this stage, unless somebody advises me otherwise, the proposed course is to have online public comment submitted by email.
And we could potentially have a proposal. We could draft something between
Okay.
now and when the agenda packet goes out. Or committee of the whole discussion.
Yeah, committee of the whole discussion, and somehow, again, how we get it into the, where's the appropriate place to insert it in rules and procedures? And maybe we do a focus change just on that while we go through the rest of the conversation. But I want to, again, get us to a documented standard way of doing it as quickly as possible, because me doing it every other week is
Right.
awkward.
As the draft is done, will it also address the committees as well?
That's a good question. Would you like it to?
That would probably be my preference so that there's uniformity.
Yes.
I can chew on that. We're a little more informal at the committee level.
Sure.
And like I said before, we don't get the viewership that council does. Well, okay. Chew on it. All right. Thank you. And yeah, like I said, in the next F&A, I'd like a time for a work session for us to talk about the open house and how to structure that. Okay, and move from there. And upcoming agenda items, And let's go ahead to number 11, review of council agenda. All right, so we'll have a workshop at 6 o'clock. We'll go through economic development element and environmental element. Adjournment and then pick back up at 7. Allegiance approval hearings, public hearings, appointments, presentations. Snoqualmie Valley Food Bank. And are you, did they approach you to come have a conversation? And I'm really, who's the sponsor, committee or mayor? And I'm taking the mayor, you were in essence sponsoring this on the agenda.
Right.
Okay. Budget introduction training, review of financial forecasts. And we'll have volunteer appreciation proclamation and Arbor Day. And then we'll move on to approval of minutes, approval of claims report. When ordinances of amending Snoqualmie code, which yes, this is second reading, and so we'll have a motion for adoption. And ordinance relating to misuse of emergency response systems, first responding, this will be first reading. All right, and then we'll move into regular agenda, committee reports, traffic impact fee program development. And capital facilities, utilities, elements. Oh, this is capital facility utilities element of the comp plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You tack that on there. All right, and then we'll Public Works, Stormwater and Urban Forestry Annual Report. North Hydraulic Consultants Contract Amendment. And Chair of Public Parks Public Works, you'll see it's not on consent. They read your mind before. Appointment of committees to Prop 1, we had that discussion here, annual budget development calendar. Do we placeholder for committee of the whole right now? Well, let's have a discussion in there on council public comment. All right, and then we'll move the mayor's report, commission committee liaison reports, council liaison report, placeholders for 2 executive sessions. Any other changes or? Yeah. I'm not gonna ask if you have real things in executive session. You just got a whole week to have fun.
I think those are placeholders.
He was giving me a look. All right, and then we'll move to adjournment. Any other go backs or discussions in regards to that? Oh, he's getting up.
This is something separate.
Okay. Well, hang on, let me close. Does it affect the council agenda?
No.
All right, so unless there are objections, we'll take with the comments we had, council agenda is approved.
Yep.
Director?
All right, so thank you, Chair. This is basically a question for council, and we'd hope to obtain some feedback from you. City, as you know, has reorged its payroll overall. And as a consequence, there are certain things that the city needs to do to potentially collect overpayments of wages over time, and we have 3 years to accomplish that. We have developed a scope of work with a potential consultant out there. And this consultant, Clark Huber, was responsible for our operational and internal control review that was completed in April of 2018. In essence, the scope of work would test and recalculate payroll for 2022 for the city in total. And so,
This is a
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this a conversation we should be having in open session or with council?
Everybody knows.
Huh?
The Teamsters know.
And I assume attorney was aware we were having this conversation.
That I don't know.
Because I would be a little bit hesitant about making decisions here without council weighing in on that.
This
If
is,
there-
this is a parallel conversation. It's not that conversation.
So we have developed the scope of work, and this is a personal service. We don't know how much this may cost us, but because it's a personal service, it's not required for us to go seek out competition for the most part.
So back up a little. Professional service.
Well, it's called a personal service under state law. No, it's personal. It's strange. I know. I agree. That's the reason why I've been printing out material. Within our contractual contract matrix itself, we call it general services. But as far as I'm aware, I've got the MRC guide here regarding contracting for services. It's called personal services in this book, presumably elsewhere as well. So
That's a weird title.
it is.
Oh.
It is. And this would fall under that category itself. But there's
But-
wide latitude in
but-
terms of what we do.
Okay,
in
similar
terms of
to,
the process or procedure in terms of obtaining, right, or at least developing a contract. It's not required for us to say, go seek out, competition or 3 bids or things like that for this itself. But we do understand that it may be down the road generally expensive. It is potentially pricey. We're not sure what that price is at this moment, but we've been working with this consultant to try to get the scope of work completed quickly for the most part, so we can turn this back around. We're interested in entertaining, potentially continuing to work with that consultant itself in terms of developing a contract and bringing that contract to council. But we understand that it would be in that situation likely a sole source for the most part, in which, given the price potentially involved, that might not necessarily be something that council would like to see, and would probably potentially prefer us to go seek out additional vendors potentially. But we're interested exactly trying to figure out where your interests may lie. They did do, like I said, our 2018 operational and internal audit. I'm not sure what other companies necessarily are out there that would conduct this work. Accounting within the state of Washington in terms of for the public sector isn't as common as what you'll find in other states, primarily because it's the state auditor's office that typically handles our audits in total. And so this is a firm that does have a public sector division overall that does provide services to other cities locally overall. And they have been working with us to kind of develop the scope and to help us kind of figure out the direction in which to go next. Because of their familiarity with the city overall from that 2018 audit, in addition to the help that they've provided overall, we think it might be generally wise to bring to you a sole source contract without obtaining additional bids necessarily. However, we could reverse that course if council deems appropriately, or the F&A committee would suggest that we should approach it that way.
do you have an opinion?
I would typically appreciate having additional bids. Part of the issue, I don't know exactly how much this is ultimately gonna cost, other than knowing that it'll be expensive.
Well, those are the words that glitch me up. It's, I'm working with vendor A to develop a statement of work. It's indications are it'll be expensive. And I like to go sole source. Connecting those dots, it's difficult for me. Now, so let's back up though. Preparatory to that, if the argument can be made that this is of such unique, a unique statement of work that this vendor is solely capable of doing, and we don't think there will be others as capable, so I guess I'm putting the sole source justification up front. If you want to have that conversation, we can have that conversation. But unless we can stand and say there's justification for sole source, it goes out to bid.
And I was gonna suggest that language that you just used, because it is true. This is highly specialized work. And there's not a lot of places that can do it. I'm sure there's more than one, but there's not a lot. They do have the availability now to do the work. That's also a component. We don't know how long the lines are anywhere else. But the other thing is they have a lot of experience doing this work locally. So I think that also plays into our thoughts that this actually has a decent chance of passing the sole source muster. Considering that and the need to get this work done in a time.
This was their number one request last year for help from the public sector.
And I agree with two of your arguments. You made three, but I agree with two of them. So yeah, I mean, prior to getting that point, when you're ready, let's have that. Should we do this sole source or not? Let's have that conversation in there. Or, considering it's a contractual matter, that may be an executive session. Your guys' discretion. But you at least got the option to have an executive session discussion of that, either next FNA or.
Thank you.
At least you bring the interesting ones. All right. And I think with that, we're at the end of the agenda +2. Any other items to bring forward to committee before we go to adjournment? All right, hearing no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you all tonight.